of the hour, so I'm going to kick us off. I have a few announcements and then we'll dive into our topic. So if you haven't been before, we do have a Facebook group. You can find it on Facebook if you just search WordPress accessibility, or it's facebook.com/groups/WordPress.accessibility. It's a great place to connect with people between events, share things that you're working on, get advice or feedback, provide help to other people. It really is a community effort. So feel free to join that if you're interested. Everyone always asks, is this being recorded? Yes, this is being recorded. It takes us about 2 weeks to get corrected captions. And then once we have the corrected captions, we will post it up on our website with the video and a full transcript as well. You can find upcoming events and all of the past recordings if you go to equalizedigital.com/meetup. That's where it will be posted. You can also get notified when it's available if you join our email list at equalizedigital.com/focus-state. We also started recently releasing just the audio for these on the podcast, and that is at accessibilitycraft.com. We got some feedback from some attendees that they didn't want to have to watch them on YouTube and they wanted to just be able to listen, maybe while they're doing dishes or something. So we have them up on the podcast. They don't always go out right at the same time in sync because we only do podcast episodes once a week just because of workload. But they do come out on the podcast. We are seeking additional sponsors for the meetup. The WordPress Community Foundation, unfortunately, does not have budget to cover the cost of captions or transcription or ASL or anything like that. So if your company or you would be interested in learning more about it, you can email us at meetup@equalizedigital.com. We greatly appreciate anyone helping us to make the meetup accessible. So who am I? If you aren't familiar, my company is Equalized Digital. I'm Amber Hines. I'm the CEO. We are a certified B Corp that specializes in WordPress accessibility. We also are the maker of a free open source WordPress plugin that tests for accessibility problems on websites. It's called Accessibility Checker, and it does have a pro add-on as well. You can learn more about us at equalizedigital.com. And I just noticed now we still have a Twitter icon on our slides. I suppose it's supposed to be an X icon, but I don't know. We are on the best place probably to find us is on the app formerly known as Twitter. But you can also find us on LinkedIn too, if you aren't super into the Twitter thing. Oh, and my slides are jumping around. Sorry about that. We have a couple of upcoming events. So I want to make an announcement. We don't typically cancel meetups, but we are going to cancel the Monday, August 21st, 7 p.m. Central, US Central meetup, because that's the week of WordCamp US, and a lot of us are going to be at WordCamp US. So WordCamp US, of course, is at the end of that week. We'll be there sponsoring Equalized Digital. I'm also going to be the team lead on the accessibility table for Contributor Day. If you have never been to a Contributor Day, please come. It's actually the day before WordCamp US. If you happen to be local to that area and you weren't able to get tickets to WordCamp US, you can still come just for Contributor Day. It's free to sign up. It's a really great way to get involved with the project and help move accessibility or anything else. There are a lot of other tables that you can do. Just help move the WordPress project as a whole forward. I see Laura posted in the chat that Laura is the co-lead for the training team table. So definitely come if you are able to Contributor Day. It's a big thing that I'm promoting. And then our next meetups will be on Thursday, September 7th at this same time. And Bette Hannon and Meg Miller will be speaking about WooCommerce and accessibility. So that'll be super interesting because we have not had in the 2 years of this. I realize this meetup is now 2 years old as of July, which is very cool. We have never had to talk on WooCommerce. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what they've been doing with WooCommerce to enhance the accessibility there. And then on Monday, September 18th at 7 p.m. US Central Time, Alex Stein and I will be doing one of our quarterly accessibility audits, and it will be for the Access Ally plugin, which is a e-learning / membership plugin. So that'll be really interesting. So I am very excited to introduce Elvis Krstulović. Hopefully I got that right. I practiced a little bit before. Elvis is a designer and a design educator. Since 2011, he's worked on web experiences for art and education organizations and taught graphic and interactive design to BA and MA students since 2013. Elvis joined the Builderius team in December 2022 to help improve its user interface while maintaining its power and flexibility. Over his design and development career, he's seen how an innovative tool can change the way we work. And I'm very excited to have him here to speak with us and share some of the efforts that they have been putting in for accessibility into their tools. So thank you, Elvis, and welcome.
Thank you, Amber. Does everybody hear me?
Yep, let me stop. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can start sharing. And then just so everyone knows, I will be watching the Q&A module. If you can try and put questions into there, we will pause and pass those along at appropriate points to Elvis. So I'll let you take it away.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share the screen now. And then just give me a second until I move this away.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Elvis. Amber already introduced me. I want to just warn something at the beginning of this talk. I have a bit of an accent, and when I get excited or just kind of in the presentation, I can start to speak. I tend to speak a bit more faster, and sometimes I even kind of pronounce very silently some words. So if that happens, please warn me. I'll try to not do it, but it could happen. Also, I've imagined this presentation kind of like a dialogue, so feel free to ask while the presentation is going on. You do not need to wait for me to finish. Yeah, because on the team, on the Builderius team, there's 3 of us. It's Vitaly Kiko, who is our main front-end developer, Builderius, who is our backend developer, and I, who am kind of a product designer, let's say. But when this team is so small, it's also, we also let's say, mix what we do. So the presentation is going to be about our idea, why and how a visual tool for building websites or site builder could help make accessible websites. And so that's kind of an idea that I want to present. I wanted to say a couple of words about me. So I've started my journey into web as an artist trying to make a website for myself. Then I started my education in design, and then moved to teaching at the university, which kind of is both a learning experience and being, teacher as well. And then in some recent years, I started developing WordPress websites for clients, and that's mainly culture and education, because that was kind of a context that was close to me. I work mostly locally, although I do also do some work kind of with international clients. So I want to just say a couple of words in general about Builderius, so that you kind of understand the wider context of accessibility within Builderius. So what you see as an image is a screenshot of a new UI that's not yet there. So that's going to come out with our version 1 we are releasing a last version before the new UI next week. So some of the things that I'm going to be using in Builderius is not available in the current publicly available version. So there's some new stuff, but still not new UI. And so Builderius approaches development in a way that kind of is geared towards developers and wants to help with the workflow and flexibility of the builder. So, you know, when we were thinking about the builder and what it does, it kind of brings website building to the wider number of people. It makes it easier, but it also limits certain things that can be done with builders as opposed to just coding the website. And so we built it in a way that entire HTML language is available to you. So you can basically create any kind of HTML element with any kind of attribute. There is no limits compared to any other way of doing that. And then when it comes to dynamic data, we use kind of a different approach in which we keep separate data from the design. So data is kind of, we call it data agnostic. So we can take any kind of data. It doesn't even have to be the WordPress data. It can be coming from REST API, or it can come from, recently we did a demo with Google Sheet, giving data for, you know, an example of a loop. So in order to, when keeping those things separate, we get more freedom as to how to structure the website. And so that's kind of in general. And when I joined Builderius, it actually happened directly linked to accessibility. So I was part of a group, but not yet using the product at all. And we've talked a lot about accessibility. And at some point, another member of the Facebook group said or asked whether Builderius could be used to build an accessible menu for keyboard and screen reader. And I've never done that in any way previously. I was always using some solution and tweak it, but I never built a menu, like a walker from the ground up. So it was kind of a challenge for me and challenge for Builderius. I wanted to see if it could be done. It claimed that it can, but no one had done it before. So that was my intro into Builderius. I spent some time building a custom menu from scratch, and actually the guide that I followed, I found from, it's Adam Berkowitz, if I'm saying it right, and actually heard about this from Amber's group, from accessibility, Facebook accessibility group, and so I, kind of that was my start. So what I said here was, okay, so we do it with the builder so that more people can build accessible websites. That's our kind of idea, why builder should even deal with this. And then we provide some tools for it. So this is kind of what I'm going to talk about today, is why accessibility in a builder and how we do this. So I did a little research and I wanted to see if that makes sense in terms of numbers of users you could affect using builders. And I use this chart to kind of see it in a larger picture. So WordPress in total is here. And you can see a lot of these builders occupy quite a lot. Of course, the easier they are to use, they use more. But even Oxygen, for instance, takes, is here. It's not like some other on the very beginning. So we were thinking, okay, so this makes sense to focus on this. It might provide really access to accessibility to more people. And so when we say about Builderius that it works differently, we say something like HTML first. And because we have separate data from presentation or from design, this means that basically you can build any kind of HTML structure without really thinking about WordPress. And once the design of the page or a template is done, you can then choose to pull data where you want. So that's the kind of a first premise here, is that we want you to be able to build any kind of HTML structure and then pull data where you need it. And this should, if you know, enable you to really create accessible websites. So that first stage, we consider that we, in a way, achieved. But this is only targeting people that know how to do accessibility. So this is really for the people who perhaps could really develop it by code and know exactly what needs to be done, or I mean, no one knows really exactly what's to be done, but they have the technical knowledge of how to achieve stuff. So that can be done with Builderius right now. And kind of I've written here that HTML is pretty good out of the box, and this is kind of this position that when you start designing or putting CSS and JavaScript and all of this onto HTML, and that's one way of making it less accessible. And also when you're not using HTML properly. So when you're not using semantic markup, when you're not thinking about structure, then structure of the page, as a complete thing, this is when it starts to not be accessible. But in essence, HTML on its own provides quite a bit of accessible experience, let's say in general. So GraphQL is important here because of the flexibility. Sorry, I think I've never mentioned GraphQL, and now I'm talking about it as if I have. So I'm just going to stop for a second. The way we fetch dynamic data is not with PHP like other builders do or tools do. We use GraphQL because it's easier to get exactly the data you want and really transform it into structures of data that you like or that you need. So this provides us with this separation that you can really then use nicely to achieve complex or really just semantic structures with HTML while using dynamic data. So this is the first part. So when I'm saying sectioning usual approach, I'm referring to most builders. Of course, that is not valid for all builders, but in some sense, most of them. So when you open a builder and you look into the kind of sectioning elements or layout or design, these groups are called different ways. You will have blocks or elements or modules with such names: container, section, block, div, columns, rows. And I did something here. I written a.button, where buttons are actually links. And then compared to or let's look at this a bit more. So if you look at these elements, other than section and div, which themselves are not semantic, or the div is completely not semantic, and section is the least semantic of layout or sectioning elements. Others are have nothing to do with semantics. They are really design concepts. These are blocks, columns, rows, containers. Not really, does not seem like someone was thinking about semantics when they made those. Compared to this, our layout section has header, main, footer, div, article, section, aside, and button is not from that section, but we actually have a button, which is a button. And we also have a way to write any HTML element. So because we list a lot of them, and there's a lot of them, it would completely overcrowd the UI. So you can just start typing. And you can create custom elements. And in fact, we do write a lot of custom elements called Builderius dash something, and use them like that as well. So this allows you to really kind of do what you want. One of the reasons why this is also kind of good, and I recently actually wrote in the group, in the accessibility group, question about details element, was that we don't have it as a module in the builder, but because you can write custom elements, you can make it on your own, and then you can save it as a custom module and keep using it. So I was thinking, since I kind of believe in this HTML first approach, it might be the best way to make accordions. In the discussion, it came out that it's not necessarily so, but that's the idea. Yeah, you can kind of really have access to HTML, and that should empower you to really create a flexible website. And it's not only elements. So you can really easily add class, ID, any ARIA element, role, data, whatever you want. So we make this available for you. You just type it in any element. We also add some of them in some elements because we think we should promote them in a way. So for instance, although you could just write any attribute to an image module, image module will have a special alt field there for you prepared, so that it kind of reminds you, you should add something here. And then going back to GraphQL, this is also where we can use dynamic data to generate these values of these attributes. And the way this has proven to be very exciting for me was when I was doing this accessible menu. And when I started thinking about the button that opens up a submenu for the keyboard or the screen reader, and I needed to add ARIA controls attribute, which should point to an ID of an exact element it should open. And of course, menu is a dynamic thing, so generating these as someone adds items in WordPress to their menu. I could loop over these items, look up their IDs, and use them to create values for the ARIA control. And so that's easy to do and make a dynamic menu like this. And even further, with some new modules, we're now looking towards how to do that even without GraphQL, with some modules that can kind of make it easier for you to do it like that. So that's kind of the approach here, is that dynamic data can be put in any kind of micro elements like attributes, but also on elements themselves, the generate elements themselves, in order that you can really kind of hook up elements in a way that is going to be understandable for most users, hopefully. And so this is the moment I want to show you a little bit of this. So you're going to see an old UI, which we still use. And the idea here is I'm going to show a little bit of how sectioning in Builderius works, so how we can use these modules. And I want to create a kind of a dynamically generated list, a kind of a menu without styling, to show this thing that I've just described, how we can make these attributes come from IDs and so on. I prepared some stuff for me to be a bit quicker, but yeah, you're gonna see. So auto time zone converter, I don't need. So when I'm gonna make it a bit bigger. Hopefully, everyone will see it like this. So when your Builderius is installed, you will have a menu item here, and it has a couple of items. Components and templates are basically the way you structure your templating system. Components can be headers, but it can also be a small reusable element like a card or something. And templates are, the entire pages. So I'm going to open up the one that I've already made, which controls the homepage. We work only in templates, and we expect content to come from either custom fields or the Gutenberg editor. So you are not using this to make pages, but to make templates, to create, let's say, themes of a sort. So we are now here. This is the panel is one collapsible panel, and your canvas is blank when you start. You add any element by pressing on the module here, and you get your options. Because there's a lot of them, I always search. And on the top here are custom modules that I've made myself. If you didn't do that, then nothing is here, and it starts with layout modules. Here we have header, footer section, the things I've been talking about. So I'm going to just add a couple of them. Let's say I'm going to add a main after this, and I'm going to add a footer, and then within main, the article, and within the article, I can add a heading, and I can add a div now to hold my content. And so if I would now want to populate this with some content, I would go to H1 and delete the placeholder text and choose post type. And because we're on the home, it's going to tell me home. So I've used this icon, which is next to any field that can take dynamic data, which is almost all. And I've just pulled from a list. This is all coming from GraphQL queries that are pre-made for our users, and they are not available in the current Builderius version that's publicly available. That's one of the new features we have opportunity to see here. And then I can do div and do the same. I can say content, and content would populate if this homepage would have anything. So that's how easy it is, and how kind of front-facing these semantic elements are. So they are not, for instance, we do not have like a main element for us to be a section, and then you go to section, and then you go to advanced, and then you change to header. It's rather they are right there, right? And I can change my mind, and I can say, okay, maybe this should actually be a section, and I can do that for most any element. So that you can do that, and it then changes the name as well, telling you what is what. But the idea is this should be easy for you. This should be like when you want to make a header, you should just type header, and it should be here, and you should be able to add it. So that's something that we, I guess, did. I'll just remove all of those.
Can I jump in and ask a question that I'm curious about? If you were to try and add like 2 headers or to a page, would the builder flag for people that you're not supposed to have 2 of those tags?
That's a great question. Yeah, so that's a great question. This is something we have planned to do, and it's going to be a bit later in the presentation, but the idea is, yes, to make those basic audits that can be done by the tool and not by the actual audit person auditing, to build them into the builder. Right now, we don't have that, but that is our plan, yes.
Yeah, so, that's cool that you're planning to do that.
Yeah, so to remind a little bit, so the thing that we have achieved right now is make it easy for people that know how to do it. There's a lot in front of us to do more, of course, because if the plan is to actually help people do it if they don't really know, then of course we have to do much more. But right now, we wanted to start with this foundation where you can do what you want, and it's easy for you, or at least we hope it's easy. So this was the sectioning elements. So now I want to show you how we can work with attributes. So I'm just going to add, I don't know, let's, what can I add? I'll just add a section with inner container. This is a custom composite module that I've made that kind of centers things. And for instance, we make this heading, but also to kind of in the accessibility tree of when you look in the browser, you might want to define this region, by whatever is written here. And to do that, so to kind of add to the fact that it has a heading inside, you could do that with described by attribute. So you can come here, and there's like a repeater, which allows you to add as many attributes as you want. And you can type aria, labeled by, hopefully that's right. And now I realize I don't have an ID, so I can come here, add an ID first, and say section title 1. Okay.
I think you need 2 L's in your labeled by.
Thanks. Let me label like that. and value. So this now, let me test if it worked. I opened by pressing the button to preview on the front. I open it up, and if I'm gonna zoom in here, that's too much. I hope people see this. So I can press here this accessibility tree, and the region now has a kind of a label, and it should, as far as I understand, help screen readers kind of navigate through this content of the page more quickly and more informatively. So that's a basic use of a custom attribute. Nothing special there, but it's here. Okay. Hopefully I'm not too fast. If I am, please tell me. So I'm actually going to add this again because I want to actually make this list, dynamic list within it. So I'm just going to say a list, so we kind of know what we're doing. And if I want to add an element within another element, I can just use this plus element. And I want to use a module we call dynamic list. It's here. And by default, when you put it in, it's going to give you some placeholder data. So in this list element here, it's just looking for anything of the data that sits in the actual dynamic list element. This is producing a UL element. Then we have a template HTML element, which does not render on the front. It gets removed. So you get a pure LI elements within UL. But we use it for conditions and for all of this kind of component-based approach in development, in which it kind of it makes it flexible to create conditions and different results. So in order to do this, I want to use this dynamic list to generate a WordPress menu now. So to do that, I need to fetch some dynamic data. So I'm going to remove this placeholder, use again that database icon here. I've pre-created a custom query before this presentation, so it kind of goes a bit faster. And I have a source of data here called menu items. So I can click this. And at the beginning, I'm going to get everything about each menu item. But if I replace this, and this is a kind of a template tag within these two curly brackets, which allows me to fetch any element of an object like a menu list item is. So right now I want to, I guess, print the title as within the A tag. And then I want to print the URL as well. So I see here I have title and URL to reference within this kind of loop context. And I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to add a link, a simple link. And inside, instead of this, I'm going to pull the title of the link. And then instead of this hash, what's the name, the shebang, I'm going to show the URL. So right now I'm getting like a top level items, which allow me to navigate this as a menu. But I need also to show the submenus. So in order to do that, I need to add another module, and this time a simple list. And then inside of that list, another template. And then a list item. Now I shouldn't have deleted that, but I'm just going to use any, and then I'm going to, sorry, wrong element. I'm going in template, I'm going to add a simple HTML element. So it's like any kind of element, and turn that into list element. Okay, and then inside for now, I'm just going to write a link, or maybe like this. So it still didn't show anything, but if I come here, right click, so above the element in the canvas, I right click and I re-init. And now I'm getting all the links, even the links that are sublinks, but they seem to be on the same level. So I need to make some conditions so that I can say, okay, so give me these links only when there is a sub, like when they are children, let's say. So I'm going to do that like this. So I think here I need another template within the top list element. And then put this here. So this I put a sub list into the template. So now I can add a condition. And condition is children. So it's saying, okay, so give me this only when these are children. And if you look at the canvas now, you can see that this link appear only under the blog top link, which is because this is the only link that actually has children. So we have just made we said to the loop engine, okay, show this sub list only when it's actually a child of another item. So we now have this. I will indent them just so it's easier to distinguish. So I can go to CSS settings, add a selector, and say, give me a UL element within the UL element. And I'm just going to use margin to do something like 1.2 rem, just to clarify what is what. Okay. So if I want to show now the HTML so that it's clear where we are in this process. So, okay. So this is the list, the top level list, and the middle list item has a UL, which then, okay. So I am now repeating the UL element, which I shouldn't. So I need to change some of this. So let me see. Here I have a list inside. Wait a second. So actually, I think here. I think I need to use it the other way. Oh no, it's different. So it's like this. So it's where am I? Reload this. Okay. So right now I want to hide. No, I need to add a button. Sorry, a little bit lost here. So within this, I need a button that's going to show a toggle button that is going to show only when we have a sublist to open. We will add it therefore within the template. And so I need a button. And we need it to be before the list. Okay. Of course, when I do the demonstration, I get some mistakes. So just give me a second.
That's the fun of a live demo.
Yeah. So I'm getting these repeated. So, oh well. In order to see a bit better how this works, I'm going to add our menu to see how it's done there. And so I got to go here. Okay, so we have that the children that works.
Is the loop, there was a typo in the loop name. Does that matter?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Go back to where you were. Do you see the loop recursive item name? It doesn't have an E in children.
Yeah,
Does that
that's
matter?
a different one. Yeah, that's not
okay.
wrong. This is a special another attribute that makes it possible to be a recursive menu, which means you can have as many levels as you want. It's a bit more complex thing to do. So it's kind of within the menu. It's done for you, but it's not. Wait a second. So we have a top element, then we have a template where we actually have a data condition and this. So this is telling us there are children. I'm going to use this same logic here. So let's see if it works like that. Condition. Yeah, now it works. Okay, so it should be a condition, not a source. Okay, so this is our custom menu going on. So now we want to give this button an ARIA control that will point to this sublist element, right? But we want to do it dynamically. I'm going to revisit this just to check that everything is actually working in terms of the structure of the menu. So we have a list, 3 list elements which are top. Let's check here. So they are on the top. The middle one has an A link, which goes to blog. Then we have a button, and then we have a UL, but it doesn't have an ID. So we'll add that. We'll go to attributes, and within ID, there's also a dynamic source for that. And we can just say ID. So that's the first step. And so let's see what it is. So it's 1275, and it doesn't have to be entirely dynamic. We can modify it. So it can be something like sub menu dash. This has to be in single quotes. And then this, I never know how that is called, this wavy character. I'll zoom in so you can see.
A tilde, I think.
Yeah, tilde, right. So I can now reload again and save to preview the output on the front. And it's going to say submenu 1275. So this is an ID from WordPress that it gave to this navigation item. And I've combined it with some name that kind of makes sense. It's kind of easier to understand by, I don't know, another developer that comes after you and wants to see what's going on. And so I can do exactly the same thing on a button. So I'm only on a different kind of attribute. So I'm going to make a new one, and I'm going to call it ARIA dash controls. And I'm going to paste this. Save, go on the front. And now the button points to this URL element. So right now, I have demonstrated a little bit how you can use dynamic data flexibly to get various aspects of WordPress data items, and how to link them together. Of course, what is missing here is kind of an interactivity that is usually provided by JavaScript. So that's missing here, and that's something you still have to, like, if you're not using our menu, you will have to do that toggle thing that's gonna also change ARIA expanded. So on a button, of course, we should also have another element, ARIA expanded, and it's going to be false by default, and then that should modify states of other attributes, and some problems we have with just the icon when it's in the menu. But when we finish this, you will be able to actually build your menu as an accessible menu without writing any line of JavaScript. But the difference from just using our menu is that you're actually going to be able to build any kind of menu you want. While with our menu, there's a structure we made, right? So you can change it a lot. I'm just gonna move this on the side, but it's still set somehow, and it might not work for you. So the idea is, and that's kind of going back to the beginning. Even if we don't have some element, you should be able to make it if you have knowledge or time. So, for instance, I've made a Builderius menu before there was a menu as a module. You just take some time, but you can do it. So it kind of, in a way, if something is missing in the builder, you should be able to do it with a bit more time on your own. Okay, so that is the first.
I saw a couple of questions that I wonder if it might be a good time to pause and ask them.
Yeah, perfect, yes.
So I know you showed just a tiny bit, but someone did ask, can you show again either styling or how you define CSS in this? So let's say you were building your own menu there, where would you go?
Okay, sure. So before I say that, I'm going to say a bit about, because I didn't want to talk too much about CSS. So let me just give a brief, because it takes CSS a bit differently than WordPress does. Not so much differently from other development contexts, but maybe less so in WordPress. It's a component-based system, which means that everything you build in Builderius is scoped to a certain scope. So it can be a module scope, or it can be a template scope, or component, depending on what you're using, or global. So depending on what you want to do with the CSS, you can place it in different scopes, and that way it almost never loads any CSS you're not using. So if I'm making a menu, I'm going to set my CSS within it, especially because that's going to be a component. So when you place it as a component, it doesn't have to be global to be able to be changed from one place, because as a component, everything about it can be changed in one place. So in order to show this, I can just make a small detour here and go to components, and I prepared one because I thought it might be useful. So this is the header component, and it doesn't have anything in it right now, but I'm going to just quickly make like a header, let's say, and I'm going to show how to do it with CSS, and also how then to use it on other templates. So I'm just going to add a header. Within it, I'm going to add two things, like let's say a site title and a menu, like a typical horizontal bar that we normally use. So first thing, I'm just going to use text element. And I'm going to move this over here so you see it. And inside of it, we have a kind of a toggle that enables you to transform any element into a link if you want. So you put something, oh, I actually need it to be a link. You can just click here. And then it adds also a URL field for you. So here, I'm going to use a site title dynamic element, dynamic like helper function. And then here, it's going to be site. I have to type because it's actually I put the wrong element. It has to be site title, not post title. So site title, and then site again, but this time URL. So now it's a link, as you can see. I can hit escape to see it better. So it's a link now, right? Okay, so that's kind of a site title, and then next to it, I'm just going to add a menu. I close this now, you'll see it here, but of course it doesn't look right. The one is on the top and the one is below, and the menu is not the real menu. So I'm just going to open my menu builder, go to nav, and then menu element itself. There is a placeholder data here. I'm going to delete that and type nav, and I'm going to get a nav menu option, and then just choose the exact menu I want and click submit. Once I do that, it's actually a real menu now. And now the last thing is CSS. So I can do this on the top module that holds the entire structure. And I'll do a couple of things. I will make the background white. So if there is another kind of background that appears below it, it's going to still be visible. I'm going to use flex to make it horizontally organized. And I'm going to add z index, like position relative, and z index high. So if, I don't know, if I fix it later or something, stuff go below it. So let's start with this. So, you know, all the time so far, we were in data settings. So data settings are kind of HTML part. This is where you write elements of HTML. The other part is CSS settings. This is not necessarily at the best organized UI, but that's why we're making a new one. But this is how it is so far. So, and on the top you have scopes. So component or global. So this is where you can, you know, do stuff on the global level. But as I said, since we are now in a component that's going to be centrally controlled for everything about this, we're going to stay in the component. We want this CSS to not go anywhere. So I'm going to, you know, just stay where I am. I'm going to go to header, so even smaller context, only within this module. And here I can go to CSS and I can start styling stuff. So first I want my parent element, which is the header, to be a flex element and to align stuff within it. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to go to layout. And if you don't know where something is, you can always use a search. So let's say display, it just shows here, and choose flex. And so something happened, so it works. And then I can just delete this. I know it's in layout, and I'm gonna do two things. One is align center. So now the vertical alignment works, and justify content space between. Okay. I also see there's padding missing here, which is not going. I know it's not going to be a problem because menu has it already. So I can just add it to the header, and I'll do something like padding. And on the left side, I'm going to do 1.5 rem. So it's kind of, not touching the edge. I can now add the background color, and paint it white. And I can also say color. So text is black. So that's working for everything, but of course not the link. So I can do this the way it makes sense for me. You could do it differently. You can go to the link or something. But I can say any link within this header, make it black color. And I can do that while on the header. I can click here. See here, you have all kinds of selectors you might want. So you have the original one, which is this element you're on, or some pseudo, focus, and all that. Or you can make new ones. So you can just click on it and start to look for child elements. So space A. So it's going to tell you there's 8 such elements selected. And I can now go again here and paint this black color. And as you can see, now it's no longer purple. And I can also say decoration, because of course, in links in the content, I would say need this, but for a site title, perhaps not. So I'm, in this case, going to say none. And I could add a focus, and then add a style for that state as well, which might be, let's say, I don't know, outline's going to happen anyway. So let's say underline, right? So if I now say save, there's one thing we forgot, which was position. So position can be relative, so it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to allow me to use the Z index to be like 99. Okay, so I can now save, and all this kind of works. And component is finished. We cannot preview it now because component itself cannot be shown. It can be shown only when it's in the template. So I can close this now, go back to WordPress, go to my templates, and I'm going to go to home, back where I was. And now I can add the component. I'm going to type component, which is a module. And inside of it, I can choose some of the components I've made. So header is one that we have. And now we have the header inside. And in any template we want, we can add the header. And with conditions, we can make one header in one component, offering different options, whether depending where it is, or we have really robust conditions, like you can look for whether you're logged in, what's your role, cookie states, all kinds of stuff, and it's all visual. So you can add a group of conditions, choose like from a huge list of conditions, and even write like a custom expression if you know how to. Okay, so that's a header. I can save now. I want to preview just to show a little bit the accessibility of the menu. So we are here. We can click on this. We can come in. If I hit escape, it's going to go back to the button, so I can go back again. If I go to the next one, it closes down, and so on. So that's how CSS can be used. If of course there are reasons or
sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Of course, there are cases when you need global CSS, which is why we have it, right? And in that case, you would go to global from any template or component, like wherever you are, and you just make your CSS selectors here. So you can come here and make a class selector, which is given like some dash element, and create it. And now you can use your CSS, and it's going to apply to this class, and whatever has this class is going to get those styles. You can also use, it doesn't have to be a class at all. Like I can edit it and say, I don't know, area expanded equal true. And then it's going to be for that kind of selector. You can use literally any kind of selector you want. And it's also one thing that's also maybe interesting to mention. We have custom media queries on module basis. So you do not need to have one media query for the entire template. You can make them per module. So if one module needs a bit of different moment to change because whatever design, you can do that. You do not have to have these gigantic media queries for the entire page when something like a title is changing, whatever size.
So I think it's actually. I was going to say, I think it's neat because I haven't seen many builders where they put CSS on a component or an element basis. And so typically it's loading massive style sheets on every page. And so I'm assuming from a performance standpoint, this is much more performant and better.
Yeah, we did like a community project called WP, what was it? Builder Fight Club? within different groups, and so all the users or even authors of builders got together and made the same page. And I'll just say Builderius is quite good. So yeah, it is good for performance. Most builders or frameworks deal with this in something that could be called like tree shaking, or this idea that it checks what CSS is actually used on a page, and then it ditches the one that it's not. And that's good, but it's also very complex. You know, it's like a complex engine to do something that here it's just like it goes with the component. You do not have to make like complex database relationships to check all these things. It's just like CSS goes with this component. It's where it is. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't appear if it's not used. So yeah, we think it's it can grow well as a system for working with it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I had two other questions about CSS and then one more, and then I'll let you jump back. Gerson had asked, if you're applying scopes in CSS, does that mean that the style sheets are dynamically generated for each page?
Yes, but that would be a problem if they would be large, but it's not page, it's component, remember? So when you work with Builderius, your DOM is super small. Like you're almost always in a kind of a shadow DOM, if you know the concept. This is like this web components term for like, in all, like comparison might be like iframes used to be, but not the same. So for instance, if I'm making this, you know, this is my entire, like I'm now in a component, right? Oh, actually, I'm not. Wait, I have to go to the component. And this is a typical component. You know, it's a menu and blah, blah. And this is all it has. You know, that's everything I have to work. Like when I'm doing this component, this is my context. This is the complexity I have. I do not really need BEM or different complex class systems to be able to handle this, because I can have the same class here and then in another component, and they're not going to clash because they're isolated. So I can just call it like link or whatever. And this CSS gets generated with this component. So it's not like we're not generating for each page, we're generating for each component. So it's small bits that go together quite well. And our tests, like there may be cases when this, of course, that's kind of how do you cache this and so on. We have an internal caching system, so we don't use any caching plugins with it. So it tends to work quite well. Because it's these kind of little boxes that just get assembled, you know, at runtime or at a moment when you request the page.
Yeah. He was also wondering, is it possible to write CSS directly instead of using the builder's UI and have it automatically be applied to the UI?
Yep. Yeah, it's also
He said, I think that'd be a cool feature for people who'd rather type than click buttons.
Sure, that's here. So if you want to write your CSS, you're free to do so. Just custom CSS. You make a style sheet. Add some bugs here. Great. So like custom, and let's see, I don't know, H1, color, black. Oh, and you can.
And it has prompts to help you. You can hit return and select the prompts if you don't want it to speed up typing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is I forgot the name of this editor component, but it's the one that's used by WP Codebox. Like everyone uses the same one, so it's really yeah, all the Emmet goodness works. So you can use that. I thought I would prefer it, but I really don't use it a lot for some reason, because it's kind of because of its searching capability, it really works quite fast for me, but it's there for you. There are some CSS rules we don't have, very little, but some. So in that case, I use it. But otherwise, it's somehow easier for me here. But yeah, we have it. You might not remember in the. I'm going to show it quickly here. Where is it? Oh yeah, Figma here. We're going to back a couple of slides. So in the new UI, it's going to be a huge, like a big panel on the bottom. It's going to be like you will be able to drag it. And here you will have the code editor for everything, and you will be able to also scope it. And it's going to be one click away, whatever you're doing. And CSS itself is going to be just, you will not have to push any buttons to confirm. It's just going to update the canvas, same like when you use the UI. So it's going to be a bit easier to access.
All right, so last questions, and I'll hide myself while you answer it, so you can go back to your planned slides.
Yeah, no problem. No, just ask.
So someone had asked, do you have, so I think it came up on the nav when you were building it, and then you did show that you have, for example, an accessible navigation menu. But are there other components that you've included where you've kind of pre-built them in a way that is accessible? So if someone doesn't know, for example, they're not familiar with using ARIA controls or ARIA, like the ARIA, they can just choose that component and it already has all of the correct accessible attributes on it? Or is that something that they really would have to learn in order to be able to build things like that?
So perfect timing, as you can see the slide, interactive modules. So that's where we are now. The idea here, pre-built, accessible by default interactive components. So of course, there's a lot of challenges. This is the moment where I'm gonna hope for advices and recommendations and feedback. I wanted to use my Mac because of the screen reader app, because on Linux here, it's not really good, I think. But my Mac is so old that everything is so slow. So I use it for testing, but I don't think it's good for presentation. So we will not be able to use it, use the voice over. But yeah, but anyways, we can see, look at the HTML and make conclusions on what it would do. I will also tell you where the challenges are for me. So yeah, so the interactive modules. So we have quite a lot of them. We have rewritten a lot of them for this next release before the UI. Some I think are quite good. Some there's a lot of challenges. So yeah, let's see them. So menu you have seen, right? Accordion, I think is as it normally should be by all the recommendations I can find. I'll just go into this. Where am I? I'm in the header component, so I don't need that. Oh yeah, by the way, if you have two screens, whatever you do, it updates on the others. Like you can open the front end of any page that uses your template and see the results immediately. You can like work in several tabs at once. So there's no fear there. So this is the front. We don't need that. That's the template. Okay, so we have components. Okay, so I'll leave. Let me just reload that, refresh that header. Okay, and I'm gonna save. Okay, so we are now in, I think, home template. And I can name this properly so we know which component it is, the header. And so I'll just keep adding modules and comment on that. So let's start with accordion. So accordion is an older element, but I think it's good. So we're going to update it a little bit in terms of flexibility for design. But in terms of accessibility, let's try some tabbing. So I tab into it, I click it, it opens up, click it back, it closes, all of that. So I'll now show you the attributes and all of that. So, so this is the Builderius accordion. This is the custom HTML that we produce for dynamic and interactive elements. And so within it, there's a button, an actual button. It has ARIA controls, which looks into the content right after it. Has ARIA expanded and so on. So if I now click on it, you will see that it gets ARIA expanded. Where is it now? True. I'll just make it a bit smaller so I can see. It has ARIA labeled by, it has role region, on the content it just opened up, and so on. So I think in terms of accessibility, accordion is one of the simplest ones, I guess, to make. So I believe it works. And you can just, so when you're in the builder, you will see accordion has this older approach that we have used, which is to use JSON inside. And Builderius behind the scenes, everything is JSON. So when you GraphQL something, you'll get a JSON output. we just use JSON, which makes it super easy to integrate with other systems. So for us, it's super easy to fetch remote stuff because it's how we do everything. So it's a bit strange for WordPress, but not at all strange for modern web. Like everywhere else, you will see JSON for, I mean, even WordPress now with theme JSON and block JSON and all that, that's all moving in this direction. So we think we're on the right track in terms of where the things are going. But some older modules like Accordion don't have a UI for it. You just have to type stuff inside. So that's, I mean, you can do it dynamically, of course, but there's no like modules. So that's going to be rewritten. That's why I was looking into details element to use that, and it can be done. I can show a bit later when I go into the phase when I'm like working with custom stuff. I'll just remove that and go to tabs. So we have tabs and dynamic tabs. So you can generate tabs from, I don't know, a loop of posts or ACF repeater or something like this. I'll just use a static tab now because perhaps it's not important. And we have these tabs here. You can tab into them. They act a bit following the guidelines. They should not be used by tabs, but by arrows. I'm now pressing left and right arrows to navigate them. And if I press tab, I'm going to come to content. If I press shift tab, I'm going to go back to them and so on. So I believe it works. And here, for instance, yeah, again, buttons, we try to use button and not div roll button or something, like, it seems to make sense having the access to the HTML. So these two, for me, are easy. So accordion and tabs, fine. But when it becomes a bit challenging is, for instance, modal. This is the new one. The tabs and accordion you have from before, but modal not. So I'm going to press here. So this model builder allows you to build any kind of model. We will be working more on what kind of triggers work with it. And that's one of the questions I want to maybe get some answers, because users want models that can fire on scroll or time or whatever. And I will be reading on it, but maybe this is a situation to maybe discuss it a little bit. How do these kinds of things that open up not on user interaction, or at least not in a kind of intentional interaction? If you're scrolling because you want to scroll the page, not to see the model, I guess. So if model pops up at that point, yeah, what is that for accessibility? I'll just open again. I mean, you can even do it in the builder. So I can press and model will open. I can press escape, it's going to close. Or I can press here. You can do that same thing. So we tried, just for keyboard, I don't think it really works in the builder that well. So I'm going to try and so now I have a focus on the button. I'm pressing enter, it opens up. I'm pressing escape, it closes, and I'm back on the button, so I can open it up again. And then tab. Now it will be nice to have a screen reader. But basically, it should now tell you you're in a model. And how I did it is this. I'm just gonna, oh, I have too many windows open. I'm gonna close this one. Yeah. Okay, so we use a template tag. So it's not loading anything in the, so you can have like huge images here. It's not gonna load them until you press. So only when JavaScript fetches stuff from the template HTML element and puts them elsewhere in the main DOM, it's going to send those requests and get those assets. So you cannot see it now because it's in the template. So in order to design it, it's actually quite easy. You just have to take whatever is in the template, you grab it and take it out. And now you can actually see the model. And you can design it, you can add stuff to it, you can do whatever you want. But let's talk about accessibility, important stuff. So for instance,
so do you have a dialogue tag?
No, we didn't call it dialogue. Yeah, no, you can make it. We can make it.
There's an actual here, I'll post in the chat. There's a dialogue HTML element.
We know the reason why we use it for our cookie consent, because Vitaly was excited about it. But there's this trade-off: older browsers, newer things. So, for instance, in Safari, that is 2 years old, it's not working. So we're kind of, I don't know, still thinking whether we should use it. And because this one,
yeah, I mean, I guess if you had, like, if you put role, a dialogue role on a div, then that would be fine, right?
Yeah. So I think I have. Oh wait, where did I put it? So I have some. Give me a second. Not here. Right now, I'm thinking I'm missing some stuff. But for instance, I've added this paragraph, which is hidden, which has which so this is for the screen readers. It appears only for the screen reader. It's the first thing within the model, and it reads your whatever it tells you here. Or actually not. Wait, no, it should be. Oh my God, I think this last update is missing some stuff about the model. I was adding. Yeah, I don't think it's there. I was adding kind of a screen reader text that announces you're in a model, right? It tells you you're in a model, hit escape to go out. And so one of the things that I didn't like about that, so I like the fact that it tells you this, but once you go out, it doesn't tell you that that succeeded. So one of the questions for anyone that might know is how to do these things. Like when you open a model, it actually tells you you're in a model, and then start to read the header, the content, whatever, and then it comes to the close button, and you can close the button there, or you can just hit the escape key, which would announce to you in the beginning. So I think that works. Not in this one, I guess.
So do you know about role equals dialogue? You could maybe even open this on your screen and everybody could see it. I posted a link in the chat. So you shouldn't necessarily need screen reader text to tell them because if you give the div or whatever, is it a div that your modal is in?
Yeah, I'm using
the modal wrapper, basically. Well, not the button, but like the actual modal itself that your content is in, or whatever container, it's a div. If you give it a role equals dialogue, and then you can add the same thing, like,
So I can come here, do this.
Yeah, and then even if you had like the labeled by and you labeled it by the heading,
yeah,
you could on that same container like label it by whatever heading is inside the modal when it opens. Then when if you have JavaScript that shifts focus into the modal, then when it shifts focus in, it would read as it's a dialogue, and it would say the name of the heading that's contained in it.
Like that. So I've now added this to the div.
Yeah, your label by is a slight
and H2 it already had an ID. And so now I can be able to just drop it back in template, save. And now that I open it up, that sounds nice. It's nice if I don't have to if users don't have to think about this, so by using role dialogue, it's gonna announce it properly. How does that work with multilingual? Like, does it translate well? Do you know?
Well, I don't think that there is a non-English version of Aria. I don't know. Like the screen reader would still probably interpret it as a dialogue, but I have not tested this and I don't know. And I don't know if we have anyone in the chat who can add comments about that. But my assumption is that if someone's using their screen reader in, let's say, Spanish, that the screen reader is going to take the English Aria and perhaps instead of announcing it as a dialogue, it might use a Spanish word for that. But you wouldn't want to change. You wouldn't change the Aria attribute to something that's
no, I'm thinking the value of the attribute. So if for instance, if So of course,
Well, I know I'm
dialogue,
saying
no.
like the value, like that dialogue, that is a literal role that ARIA, like you can't put anything in role, like you couldn't randomly, you know, like it's only, there's only accepted values. So I don't think there is a non-English for that.
My assumption was that because it's this kind of attribute, so it's not ARIA label, for instance, it's ARIA, it's role dialogue, that it should actually use whatever is the browser's language to say that, but I'm not sure. So that's what I've asked. But it seems to me it might be very good. Otherwise, if we use ARIA labels, we have also integration we're multilingual already. So we have like, we can capture strings and serve you different output within the attributes as well, depending on the language that you're using at the moment. So in ARIA labels, we have tools to do that, but because I can't do it here, I wanted to know like if there's any information on how it uses, how it works with non-English or other languages. Yeah, this, but I like this. Thank you. This sounds like a nicer way. I just wonder how the other thing disappeared. Okay, anyways, it's a thing to handle later. So yeah, so that's the model. One question is, if anybody has an idea later, I'm going to check the chat. Yeah, how to handle going out of the model, because we're no longer like, you know, then like maybe dialog handle that as well. When you close it, it says, oh, you know, you exited or something, or if that's even needed. I'm assuming yes, because it might not work, the escape key. So the confirmation that it worked seems to be something that would be desired, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so that's modal. And now, let me just check what I had, just so I don't forget some model. Yeah, and so now I want to look at the swiper module, because that's a slider. Everybody, I guess most people who make websites know about Swiper.js. It's very well known. It has a lot of features in terms of visual aesthetics. And so we've updated it significantly. In part also because of accessibility. So I'm going to just show what I talk about. So when you click it, it's just in and it works. But we exposed all the swiper script settings to the UI. And there's a whole section on accessibility that they have. I actually didn't, I used it so previously in my like hand-coded websites. I had no idea it has all of this. Maybe it didn't have it at the time, I don't know, but it's pretty impressive. So it has, for instance, outer swiper container message for the screen reader. Then it has message for the previous button when swiper is on the first slide. Message for describing the role of the slide element. Message for the next button when swiper is on the last slide. And like it goes in detail. So I have two questions about it. One is pause button, which it doesn't have. So it has all of this, but it doesn't have an option to stop the output. So that's weird. Like how do you do all this and then don't do like the, yeah, that's weird. So that's something that we would plan to add to it, just custom thing that we would add, because I guess people will want this at some point, at least so that users can stop it. So that's one question, like kind of, you know, not really a question, a thing we want to do. But the other is I've researched a lot about sliders and accessibility, and I'm lost. I actually don't know. I can't say I know how it's like, I don't know what should be done. Because when I try to work with this, it speaks a lot, and I'm not sure I understand stuff better because of this. It's just like, so in a way, any good links that are not somehow found and someone knows about would be really appreciated. I would like, I usually also do this in the Facebook group, but I would like to learn. And then it would be like, you know, how, from a user perspective, like, our question is like, we want defaults to be accessible. So when you drop it in, it's not enough to just have the fields. They should be pre-populated for kind of a common use case. And then, you know, if you do, I mean, user can always break it, but at least like if the thing that we did, should work properly. So any kind of
that's sort of the thought behind the accessibility ready tag on WordPress.org. Like, it requires that the theme meet color contrast. Does that mean that the person who chooses the theme might change it to fail? Yeah, they might. But the idea is at least the default should be accessible, and then maybe even adding a message like for example, I see in yours you have the ability to toggle on and off. I mean, I would debate whether, like, if it were me, I would remove that. Like, users should not be able to toggle accessibility off.
Nice. I like
media. Right. But if they do, like, maybe you have a big warning. This is something I would love to see more plugin and theme developers do, adding guidance into the editor to explain if someone's making a poor choice. I mean, I think it is good that there's more, some feedback that I might put. Like, one of the common things that sliders do is, even on the pagination bullets, I think it says go to slide, and that's probably going to tell you like 1 of 3. But what would be most useful for a user, because they're like, well, why would I want to go to slide 1? Is it would really be better if there's like a heading or something on the slide to say, like, go to slide for XYZ, go to slide for ABC, go to slide, right? Because then they actually know what the point of the slide is and whether or not they would want to toggle in. So Gerson mentioned Gravity Forms is that's also the only plugin I have seen that where they are putting guidance in the editor. WordPress core doesn't. So like, there's some color contrast warnings, there's explanations about alt text in the when you're adding an image block into like core WordPress. But yeah, there's not a lot of plugins that are doing it, but I would love to see more plugin developers adding some accessibility guidance for people, because they don't, the average user doesn't know, even the average developer doesn't know. So yeah.
Thank you for this.
We are getting close to time. So I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share before we don't have our captioner past 11:45, so we'll have to stop at that point.
Okay, so how many minutes do I have left?
About 10.
Okay, sure.
This has been phenomenal, by the way.
Thank you. I was very
and
nervous.
We can definitely follow up on that carousel stuff in the Facebook group after the meetup too. So
okay,
I'm gonna hide myself. I'll let you wrap. I'll pop back in when there's about 3 or 4 minutes left. Okay,
cool. So the last thing is what Amber mentioned many times. It's audits. So we're looking at different, I would say, tools that do audits for you. So right now I'm showing an image of Lighthouse within developer inspector or whatever tool of the Chrome browser, which does some nice things. Like, for instance, this site that I was checking didn't have alt attributes on the images, and it passed all the other things that they look at, which is like logical tab order, interactive controller, focusable, and all of those. So that's something that we're looking at to implement somehow in the UI. And when it comes to builders that do this, Webflow has it. So Webflow, for those that don't know, is like a visual builder that's not a WordPress based. They're like their own closed system, but they have some really nice stuff. And this is one of them. They have audits. It's like a nice, no, sorry, I didn't want to say nice, like a small, subtle, like a icon here. I didn't leave because I wanted it to be a bit more visible. But anyways, it goes red if you're not doing it right, and it goes green when it's done well. And it actually looks at the entire page that's rendered at the moment, and it looks, for instance, the sequential ordering of the headings. It looks at alt, of course, again missing alt text. It looks at non-descriptive link content, so links that don't have text inside them, duplicate IDs, all these things, right? I mean, not all of these things in terms of, like, I think this is, I think that's all they have. So I don't think it's enough. but even just basic stuff. For me personally, headings seem like super good because I think they're done well. But it can get complex. Like, where is it H2 or now add 3? And what if this, let's say H3 is a bit before H2? Does that work? Like, this kind of checks, I would love to have them. And so for us, this is, I guess, the third stage of accessibility within Builderius kind of implementation that we know about so far. So first one was being able to do it alone if you know how to, using HTML, CSS, all of that, right? Dynamic data. Second one is interactive modules that are accessible by default, which what we're doing now, and we have a lot more to do, but this is where we are at right now. And then after this, within the new UI, we will be working on audits. And so I know about Webflow. It's the first time I hear Core does it. Somehow I missed that at all, WordPress Core. But for this, I wanted to also ask if there are recommendations, if you know about tools that do it well, other than Ember's plugin, but like other tools, especially tools that are that's not their only, with your audit tool, this is why it exists, but kind of implemented into processes such as building websites or, it's going to be helpful because it's in a way, you don't have so many precedents. So it gets harder to design and do well. Any kind of links or ideas about good examples of this or bad even. So, maybe we should see something that should be done would be really useful for us. But that's what we plan to do after the new UI comes on. I'm going to devote a lot. So the first version of the UI will not have it, but we want to work on that after the UI goes out. And questions, please ask. I'm kind of done. Thank you.
This has been great. Thank you so much. It's so much fun. I love seeing different builders. I hadn't had a chance to see yours before. And it's neat to see how you've taken like a developer friendly HTML first approach that still sort of gives you that preview and allows you to potentially not even have to be coding locally, right? Necessarily if you don't want to. I really appreciate you sharing that and the effort that you all have been putting into to making sure the components that you include in it follow accessibility best practices, because that's something not a lot of builders do, or maybe they're just starting to, but it seems like you're doing it from the beginning instead of having to circle back and fix things. So I applaud you on that effort. So
thanks. Yeah, we think by doing it from the beginning, it's going to be easier. Otherwise, you need like to put stuff on top of your builder. And the idea here is kind of from the ground up. It should make it easier long term. But I have to say, I understand why other developers maybe not do it, because, for instance, menu, without the accessibility part, it will be done like in a week. And with accessibility, it took like 2 months. So it's really, it's expensive to do it for the builders and a challenging thing, but I think it should be done. I think it's, I'm excited to be doing it.
Yeah. So can you just, before we leave off, can you let everyone know how they can get in contact with you if they have any other thoughts or questions or feedback? And then there was someone who posted, they sent a message only to hosts and panelists, so you saw it, but they're interested in having someone help them with build a website. So I don't know if they asked for your email address. I don't know if you want to share that, or you could just message them directly.
So there's a couple of places you can get me. So on Facebook, look up my name and ask me. I'm not really saying no to friends. I'm active in Dynamic WordPress group, which I moderate with other people. I'm also following everything in accessibility, WordPress accessibility group. So yeah, you can find me there as well, especially because we have an event in this group. Feel free to ask me there and tag me or whatever. I'm going to try to answer. There's also a Builderius group. There is the link here as well. I'll post it in the chat or share somewhere, which for those that want to know more about the Builder, we're there as well. So yeah, Amber, you asked me in the beginning about GitHub. We have a GitHub repo. I'll share the link for that as well. So if you have some things to say specifically there, please do. But yeah, feel free to contact me. I'll share my contacts and we will be happy to chat and yeah, help if I can with something.
Yeah. Thank you, Elvis. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We're going to sit for just a second so I can watch the transcript and make sure all of the final words make it into the transcript for people who are relying on that. Otherwise, everyone have a great day. We'll be back with a virtual meetup in September. We won't have one the Monday evening US time, just because of WordCamp US. If you are at WordCamp US, come find us and help at Contributor Day.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to stop my share.